Hello everyone, this is Himanshu Chandra from Adhyayan IT Solutions. This is a demo lecture on QTP, Quick Test Professional, also known as UFT, Unified Functional Tester. The topic we are going to cover today is object recognition in QTP. QTP makes use of object repository to identify objects on screen. I'll take 2 minutes to give a brief introduction about QTP and object recognition. For those who do not know this, QTP is an automation tool. What it does is tries to automate whatever you do in the process of manual testing. Suppose you click on a login button or write username or password in an edit box and then verify whether you are able to log in into an application. This is something which you can instruct QTP to do for you. You can automate this process. For this, you need VB scripting and you write the code for that. So that's the basic of an automation tool. Now, how do you tell QTP what objects to interact with on screen? You have to tell it in a language QTP can understand. QTP has a object repository. What it does is, whatever it sees on the screen, it tries to capture the properties of those objects in that repository. For example, let's see, this is QTP open in front of you. What I'll do is record something. I'll hit record. I'll open a simple web page. And I'll write something. Notes 1, Notes 2, Notes 3, and Notes 4. I'll also write something here. Once done, I'll close the recording. As you can see, QTP has generated some code for you. We'll not cover those today. That's not our concern for this demo video. What we'd like to see is where is the repository the QTP has created. How is it able to recognize these objects on screen? So let's go into resources and object repository. The shortcut key is Ctrl+R. So the repository opens. What you will see here is a browser and a page, and whatever recording you had done, those objects will be present here. Let's expand this page and you'll see web edit 2, 3, 4, 5. The naming convention is something QTP does on the fly, whatever it feels like. Let's see web edit. Once you click on this, I'll expand this. You'll see there are some properties listed on the right. Description properties. There's a type, there is a name, and there is an HTML tag. Let's see what these mean. If you right click this and inspect the element, you will find that it is an input tag. The HTML tag is input. That is the property QTP has picked up. The type is text. As you can see, the type is text. What you do not see here is the name, web edit. By default, these types of objects, the input boxes on a web page, where you can write something, are known as web edits in QTP language. So this is a web edit. That is an internal property QTP uses, not related to the web page. These objects are mapped as web edit. You can see the same property here, object properties. These are non-editable, the class property. The class of the object lets you know how QTP recognizes that object. What is the word which it uses to recognize that object? In this case, it is a web edit, edit box on a web page. You can change the name here. You can write notes 1, hit enter, and it will be changed. You can see here. Even if you see in the code, it will become notes 1. So that naming you can change if you want. Now, let's see what about the second edit box. If you see, the properties used here are exactly the same as the first one. The type is text, the name is web edit, and the HTML tag is input. So what's the difference between these two objects? For QTP, the property of object 1 and object 2 is exactly the same. How will it know which object is which one? If you see down, there is an ordinal identifier. It's written type and value, index 2. For the first edit box, it's written as index 1. What that means is, QTP is able to find multiple objects on screen with properties which have a type as text, name as web edit, and HTML tag as input. However, to differentiate between those, it is trying to use index. The first edit box which has these properties and the second edit box which has these properties, and that is why index 1 and index 2. If you want to know which is this object on screen, click on that object here, notes 1, and if you see here, there is a button which says highlight in application. Click on that. QTP will highlight that object for you. Similarly, web edit 2. Click on that and click on highlight in application. That will be highlighted for you. Same goes for web edit 3, web edit 4, and the last detailed comments web edit. Now, as you can see, QTP has chosen all the same three properties. The only thing different here is the index. Now, from an automation perspective, that is a very, very bad thing. If on a screen there are multiple edit boxes, the first thing an automation tester tries to look for is a unique property for the object he or she is interacting with. So if I want to enter something in notes 3, I would like to see if it has a unique property. Normally, edit boxes or any object on screen has an ID property. Unluckily for us, in this case, there is no such thing. What you can see here is simply as input and type is equal to text. However, if you inspect this one, the last one, notes 4, you will see that it has a property. Input class is equal to some class. This class is equal to some class is a unique property for this edit box, which is not present for any other edit box. These edit boxes do not have that class property. If you see this comments box, inspect element, you will find it has a unique class property, some other class. This is again unique on the page. No other edit box has this property. You could have used another approach to see the properties. Need not depend on inspect element. Go into QTP. Just two objects to the right of the highlight in application is an object spy. Click on that. Something like this opens up. Click the first button. Click on this, and then your pointer changes into a hand. You can then click anywhere. Let's click here. This is what appears. Here it says QTP recognizes this as a web edit. And there are various properties mentioned here. Class name is web edit, same as what you saw in the object repository. This object spy basically gives you an exhaustive list of all the properties which QTP is able to recognize for that object. It could be class, name, type, ID, HTML tag, whatever there is, it will show you. It shows you, it also sees an absolute X and an absolute Y. It sees the class property which we just saw. It sees that height is something 22. It is a single line edit box. There is an outer HTML. Its type is text. Its value, which we have just filled up, is notes. Its width, its X and Y coordinates. Now coordinates is not something which is a stable property. If your screen resolution changes tomorrow, the X and Y properties might change. So that should be the last resort to be used. So as we talked, this class property is a unique property here. We can use this one. How can we tell QTP to use that one? Let's change the name of this web edit first so that we do not confuse it with something else. Unique class. This is the name I am going to give it. I want to add the class property here. I'll add description. So click on this plus button. Scroll down. And use this class property. So what we see is QTP did recognize the class property. The only thing is it did not use that. The reason it did not use that for recognizing the object is because we did not specify that in the settings. The default settings told QTP to only pick up the type property, the name property, and the HTML tag property to recognize an object. In our case, this was not unique enough to recognize that object. So, QTP tried to use the ordinal identifier, that is the index. Now we are telling, please go ahead and use the class property. We click on OK. The class property is used. Now, you can click on the ordinal identifier, go here, select none, OK. Once again, I'll do it again. Go here, click here in the value column. A button appears with 3 dots. Click on that. Select none and do OK. So the index property is now removed from QTP's memory. Let's see if it highlights the object. It does. Can we remove some properties which are not very required here? We can remove type is equal to text. Does it recognize? It does. You have to create a unique combination of properties for that particular application, for that particular page. The name web edit doesn't really mean much here because the class web edit is simply reflected in name. Even if you remove this, won't matter. The HTML tag input in this case again does not matter. The class property on its own is able to recognize that input box uniquely. It highlights it. It works perfectly fine. The same thing can be done for the webedit 5. The webedit 5 was the webedit in the detailed comments section. Unique some other class. I do not want to use the index. Now, this is a tedious process. If for my application, which I have been using for years and years, or the developer has told me that the class property will always be a unique one, always try using that. There must be some way to tell QTP to always use the class property. Why should I have to always add the object in the repository, then go and click on the plus sign and then edit that? That's a long and tedious process. What I can do is, let's close this for a minute. Go into Tools and go into Object Identification. Here you will see the environment. Go into Web. We are working on a web-based page. The type of object, the class name which we are trying to modify is webEdit. That is the object, right? Click on that and you will see the list of mandatory properties. You see HTML tag, name and type. These are the three properties which QTP by default always picks up. That is what you just saw in the object repository. When you did recording and opened the object repository, the three properties which were present there were HTML tag, type and name. What I can do here is click on add remove and add or remove this property. Suppose I do not want to use the name property, but I want to use the class property. This is all alphabetically sorted. Class property. Okay. So the new combination is HTML tag, type and class. I'll click OK. Now let's go into the repository and add that object. To add an object, there is a plus sign here. You click on that and click on the object you want to add. I'll add this detailed comments, the third comment box once again. Okay. It added a web edit. I'll change the name to avoid confusion. New addition. Just have a look what properties QTP used this time. It picked up class. You just change the default description properties which QTP uses. Let me make a very important point here. Unique object identification is one of the most important aspects of any automation tool. It does not matter whether you are using QTP, Selenium or a .NET product. If you cannot identify uniquely the object on the screen in a stable manner, it will fail. What happens is even a minor GUI modification will cause your script to break. What would have happened if QTP had been allowed to use the default properties here? It would have used index to identify the edit box on screen. That would not have worked out well for us. Tomorrow, there is a very high probability that a new notes label and a new notes edit box will come in between third and fourth one. What would have happened then? The index would have changed and hence your script will fail. If you had used the class property, it would have been much stable and this would not fail. See, in general, automation requires a very close look at the automation under test application. Whatever you are trying to automate, a browser, an application, a web page, you need to have a close look at it. Try to recognize the object in a very unique manner. What I just showed you is a very small and simple example of object recognition in QTP. For any live project or interview, you need to be strong in object identification. Lots and lots of questions can be formed on object identification. There are various combinations of properties and ways you can arrange these settings for a stable automation script, which we'll cover later. And you need to be very confident in using this. For the purpose of this demo video, this is all I'll be explaining now, so that you get at least the overview of how QTP recognizes an object. How to script for QTP, how to change these properties, how to create combinations of objects, of properties, is something we'll be covering later. You can download the sample code files used here from the links given below. If you have any doubts, you can contact me through email or call me up on my phone. The details are here. There is a direct link for this video if you want to download it. If you want to know about the upcoming batches, the schedules, etc., the URL is given here, or you can directly call me up. Hope you like this video. Have a good day.